Next on the agenda is a panel discussion. This morning's panel focuses on how to make content discoverable in a world that seems always to be finding new ways to divide consumer attention. And Andrew talked about that in his talk, the 53 billion indexed web pages, the multi-screen universe. Discoverability is critical. We brought together 4 panelists from different industries, music, magazines, books, TV and digital, to talk about their strategies. We'll be leaving about 10 minutes at the end for a Q&A. And moderating the panel is Gary Schwartz. I had dinner with Gary last night, great guy. He is a leader in the mobile marketing industry. He's the author of 2 books, The Impulse Economy and Fast Shopper, Slow Store, and is now at work on a 3rd book on the Internet of Things called If Things Could Speak. He's the founder of a number of mobile technology companies and has been recognized extensively in the field. I'll leave it to Gary to tell you more about the topic of discussion and introduce his panelists. Gary Schwartz.
Thank you. Wow, this is going to be such a fun panel. This is a good panel because this is what I talk about all the time, which is digital clutter or discoverability. And what's so great is, as was introduced, we have representatives of 4 pillars of the cultural industries. Although, as I introduce you guys, and Kit can speak to this, it's not so easy to delineate who does what in this new industry, right? So we were just talking with Kit, you know, how do I introduce you, Kit? You know, are you a TV producer? No, you know, that'd be 5 years ago. You know, now maybe I think of myself as a content producer, but after that wonderful keynote we had,
I'm a business person.
Right.
I own a company.
Yeah, and maybe that's probably the at least the horizontal thread of this is how do we become business owners? How do we own what we produce? Because it's a different ecosystem out there, right? So we have on one side, you know, content producers, and then you know, Jill represents the arts or visual art publishing as the CEO of the Canadian Art Foundation, and then Erin is book publishing, and Guillaume is music. Right, and so we're going to obviously have a very open discussion. We got some slides, but ultimately it's an iterative dialogue, and we're going to have questions at the end. But you know what? If you want to interrupt us, that's okay. So let's start. So there's some slides that we have for background, just to make things a little spicy. If I could get them going, that would be great. We have. Anyway, I can start without them, but when they do come on, it'll illustrate this a little better. I grew up in a small mining town in Africa, in Zambia, and in Zambia, you know, we had TV for 2 hours a day, but really my entertainment was going into the library and looking through old magazines. Thank you. That we had, and this is a compilation of Punch. I don't remember if you know the Punch magazines, but they were sort of my version of John Oliver at that point, and they have all these sort of satirical sort of little inserts and whatnot. Anyway, back in a compilation from 1906, at the end of 1906, they asked a few of their illustrators if they could draw sort of tongue-in-cheek versions of what was coming in 1907. Right? And they were really fun, but I won't go into all of them in detail, but this is one that I thought sort of gets us started about digital clutter, right? So here you have a scene from Hyde Park. So here's a forecast. Here are 2 individuals in the park, and as you can see, they've got antennas out of their hats. On their lap are these boxes, and outside of the boxes is this ticker tape sort of coming out. Right, which was, at that point, the only version of data that you could really describe, right? Because they had ticker tape at that point. They printed news. And if you read at the bottom of the slide, it says, you know, 2 figures are not communicating with one another. Sounds reminiscent of something. And the lady is receiving ambulatory messages, and the guy is receiving racing results, right? So you pedal forward, you know, to 2016, and really, you know, what do we have? We have 2 people sitting in a park, not communicating with one another. One's getting ambulatory messages, and the other one is probably getting racing results, so pari-mutuel or some news, right? And so, you know, we're here to discuss what is this, what is this thing out there that we need to penetrate, that we need to become part of in order to sell our wares, right? How do we get onto that small screen economy, right? And how do we cut through the clutter? And what's interesting for me is this whole word clutter is a very pejorative word, right? It's sort of a little bit of leading the witness on this one, because I don't know if clutter is such a bad thing. We look at it as something that is scary, right? Because maybe we haven't got a handle on how to get through all this.
It's messy.
It's messy, but it also is a huge opportunity. And so I think today we're going to be talking about how to get through the clutter and how to make clutter your friend, right? So to start with a very slow clicker, clutter can be good and it can be bad. So when Facebook came out with beautiful stories, they advertised, goodbye clutter, right? For the consumer, organized everything for them, right? When you look at you guys, when you look at clutter, do you see clutter as an opportunity or something that is intimidating for you in your industries?
I see it as a challenge because, first of all, having that platform really has democratized the medium. So I don't have to go through a bunch of gatekeepers anymore, so I'm willing to wade through the clutter in order to access and create community. So I guess I like to organize the clutter a little bit, and the way I try to do that is by creating really excellent content. So my first weapon in the clutter battle is extremely high quality content, backed by a personality.
Right, because essentially you're taking ownership of the noise, right?
Yes.
So here's something that, that this was something that just picked up over on the web, talking about clutter. The problem, according to this slide that I found on the web talking about Twitter, is social media clutter makes it nearly impossible to manage, measure meaningful connections with consumers, fans, and other businesses. So that's making a problem statement out of clutter. Is that again looking at it as a negative? Where in this do you find this an opportunity, and where do you find this as a wall and something intimidating? Anybody else in the panel?
Sure. Well, everybody, I believe everyone, all of us, we all have things that we're interested in, right? There's things out there that we actively want to engage with. So as a content creator on the book side of things, who are those people, where are they, and how do we reach out to them? I don't think it's impossible to make meaningful connections with people. You just have to know who those people are and where they are. Where they hang out online, what are the different community groups? Is it Twitter or Facebook? Is it a blog community? Is it a particular website or a forum? And there's lots of stuff out there in the digital world and also in our actual world that we're sitting in, ways that we can reach those people, and we can use all of the mediums together in order to be able to do that. So I don't see that as much as a problem as an opportunity if you're smart and targeted about it.
But when this whole idea, if I was in the real world, if I was a shopkeeper and I wanted to develop a relationship with a small group of people who lived in my neighborhood, I would stand outside the shop, I would greet people. When they came in, I'd remember their names, I would give them a bear hug. I'd have a relationship, physical relationship. How do you translate that into a digital bear hug? How do you create the warmth and the intimacy and the community that creates loyalty? I mean, you were talking to me last night about how you engage with your community. Maybe just to give me a little bit of illustration of how you are talking to your fan base, or at least your content producers' fan base.
Yeah. I think, I do a lot of home shows, so real estate is, and location. So your shopkeeper chose the neighborhood. Because I'm reading a great book about Italy right now, and the grocery store is growing in the book because the community wants those products. So I think you choose your real estate, and just like Erin was saying, you go to the platform that makes sense for your community. The second thing that you have to do is to engage with that community always. It's like a mother and child relationship. You can't ignore the child. And it's a lot of work. So the story I have is we have a brand called The Domestic Geek, which is a fabulous YouTube channel that is growing in leaps and bounds and, you know, is only less than 2 years old. And I will, as the producer of that channel, comment, you know, when the talent puts up a tweet or a post or responds on the YouTube. And she will respond back to me. And so one day I said to her, you know, like, you're answering hundreds of comments, sometimes thousands of comments a day. You don't have to answer me back. It's okay, I know you. She goes, but they will notice that I didn't answer. And I went, wow, was that ever insightful? So now I manage a couple of our show pages, which is something I would recommend every CEO to do for a short period of time, is to actually take or work beside your community manager for not a couple of days, but a month or two, and read all of those comments and answer all of those comments, because all of a sudden, forget about the 300-person focus group, you've got thousands of people honestly telling you what works and what doesn't work about your content. And that is the most exciting thing for me.
Right, and it makes you authentic, and it makes you targeting, you know, brand ambassadors, and they're going to become your...
Yeah, and it's not out there, like, I'm a television producer and I shoot a show and maybe 4 months later it goes on the screen, and most of the people who made the show have forgotten about it. No, it's every day, it's a two-way street. And that, as a storyteller, is like gold.
So let's talk about storytelling. A good segue into you know, Jill's work. Jill, I believe your editor-in-chief just came out with a book, which is apropos, you know, how to take all this noise and curate it. You know, create a story, create a narrative, give it oversight. Talk to me a little bit about that approach and how that impacts the way that you do business.
Yeah, I think it's a sea change in the whole term of curationism. And I think what we were looking at in the old days was a very prescriptive form of curationism. We were going to be telling you what you needed to look at, what the top artist was, what the best show was. And now, you know, it's maybe an oxymoron, but it's democratic curationism, where what we're working very, very hard to do at Canadian Art Foundation is to gather together all the voices across the country and identify, you know, where are the pockets of innovation, where are the pockets of creativity, who's pushing the envelope, who's got something to say. And it's very much, you know, being that listening post. And so the whole subject of David's book, so David Baltzer's our brand new editor, just won the award yesterday for the International Art Critics Book of the Year. So that was an amazing opportunity for us to be able to tap into somebody who's on top of the subject matter of curationism. And just like, you're talking about being a business manager, I think the issue for Canadian Art Foundation was more to become part of a bigger message, right, and part of a bigger story. And so, you know, in the old days, we were this publication, and now we're something that's much bigger and much more robust. So the direction's changing, big trajectory in that.
Yeah, it's interesting. You mentioned the words of democracy of content. I guess there's a balance between democracy and mobocracy, you know?
Yes, totally.
Yeah.
Yes. I mean, I've had that discussions in the editorial room where I'll say, you know, we need to democratize. And, you know, the old school thinking was, we're not going to lower our standards. And I said to them, since when is democratization lowering standards? I'm not equating the two, sorry.
Right.
Sorry.
Right.
Yeah.
So obviously your publication has evolved over a period of time, look and feel, and your audience may have changed. Tell me a little bit about, you know, how you reach your audience.
Well, I think the opportunity for us is we've got a very strong base. So, you know, 30 years ago we were a magazine with a mission. We're now a mission that has a magazine. And that's a complete sea change for us. So we're very content agnostic, and that was, you know, as our editor-in-chief, you know, was retiring, the opportunity was to actually recalibrate the role. So this editor-in-chief now has, you know, 4 or 5 roles. We've grown online 150%. We've done that through, I think, being smart about attracting what millennials, what Generation Z, and what baby boomers, and what senior citizens want, because they're all of our world. You know, I've got a very strong base of people that read that beautiful print publication It is my artifact. Condé Nast just did a big study about the power of the magazine in the hands of affluent readers, and it won't die. People love the richness of a great publication. We have to keep that and keep that audience. At the same time, the opportunity for us is to significantly ramp up the online. So what have we done? We've done what probably everybody in the room has done. We've hired a bunch of people that are 25 dressed in black, right? And we've just thrown them the keys to the car and said, go. I don't want to check what you're doing. I just want you to get it out there fast and play. So I think that's a big opportunity that, you know, you kind of have to just jump in the pool, hold your nose, and see what happens. So.
Got it. So when you talk about impressions, the economy of impressions, CPMs, can you monetize that?
We're working on it. I mean, I think, you know, to the keynote speaker's point this morning, one of the things that I think traditional publishing has been behind probably 5 or 7 years, maybe even more, is a lack of professional development in the staff themselves. They become so caught up in their content, they forget to develop themselves professionally. And I think what we're trying to do right now is ramp up the learning on all of our editorial staff's opportunities, see what is working. How do you actually now create an event, to create a scholarship, to create an opportunity for an artist that grows out of a community that's built with an article, for example.
Yeah, and Jill and I were talking about this last night, is how important it is to get the people on your team on the bus. Right. And there are people who totally resist it, people who you've been longtime friends with and colleagues who may stare at you as though you're insane, and they could quite possibly be right. But you have to be bold, and you have to get the people who buy in to that vision of playing and hiring a lot of young people. You have to hire young people. We are learning it, they know it. And we can teach them lessons of storytelling and craft and business management and all that. But when I watch my 24-year-old son with media, you know, it's intuitive, whereas me, it's a learned skill.
Right. But I mean, it still begs the question of, you know, 3 C's of, you've got curation, you've got community, and now, do you have any cash? Like, do you have commerce behind that? Or is that not, or would you make money on the physical magazine and you don't worry, the community is just I think
those,
sort of
those days
background.
are waning. I think one of the things that's long been broken is the sales model in publications, and you know, I'm basically blowing that up right now. So I think in the old days, you kind of focused on selling a quarter page, a page. I now want to sell someone Canadian Arts World. I want you to be engaged in our gala. We throw an amazing party. I want you to be engaged in supporting our young people. We take programs across the country to help disadvantaged youth. People want to be affiliated with that, and sponsors want to be affiliated with that with, and advertisers want to be affiliated with that.
So is it like an omni-channel? Is it like an amplifier effect? Because you have multiple channels, you can aggregate them into a bundle of engagement. It has to be that way. And the sense I have from a cold hard cash perspective, I sound like Harold the Jeweler, but the problem is that I think there was a lot of money left on the table. And too much money is being left on the table. We're not selling ourselves holistically. And the biggest work we did over the summer was to go across the country qualitatively, quantitatively, to understand what people wanted for visual art. They wanted to see more contemporary culture in the visual arts story. That's going to be able to allow us to expand our revenue streams. They wanted this bigger story told, so we are now the voice for visual art in Canada. That's a story that is untold at Canadian Art. And artists are suffering because I don't think there's a unified story. The ecosystem is weak. And part of our mandate and our mission now is not just a magazine. I'm so beyond just a magazine. I want to support visual arts in Canada, period. And that's a whole different thing to talk to sponsors about. Right, and then you have multiple touch points that reinforce that.
Absolutely.
You know, from events to parties to loyalty programs
and things that tear your heartstrings.
Got it.
Yeah.
So it's almost like you need to monetize your community. That's how you have to think about it.
Yeah.
Rather than monetize pieces of content or things like that. You've got in music, we have the album is the loss leader at this point, and from an artist manager perspective, as like I'm working closer, like the closest to the talent, that's really how I think about it is you put out music, the sales system is broken and has been broken for a number of years, and we still aren't quite sure where it's going, and it's changing every 10 years. So let's not focus on that. Let's focus on building that emotional, personal relationship, and it comes across at every single level, from the YouTube comments to the live show to the signing after the show, and all kind of different activities.
So Guillaume, I've been to year after year the Canadian Music Week, and I've spoken there many times, and many years ago, we had the same conversation about how do you reach your audience and how do you get discovered, because you were the first industry to get a black eye, right?
Yeah, you're the...
you were the poster child of
You're the scout out there for us.
But have you, because you hit the bus sooner than every other industry, did you guys learn more in that process, or essentially we're still all grappling with the same issue years into this?
And I'll jump back on what you were saying about developing your team and like training the skills. One thing that I've learned, I'm 36, and one thing that I've learned is that you actually have to relearn every 3 or 4 years, and hiring somebody who's 25 doesn't quite mean anything. In 2 years they'll be out of it. So it's an ongoing process. So that's that. So to answer your question, no, I don't think we've learned. No, I think we've, like we're sort of like dealing with juggernauts that are Apple.
I think there's one key thing when you were talking about monetizing that community. I think I would flip that and say, what's the value proposition for that community? What are you giving them that they need? And I mean, Steve Jobs used to say, give them what they don't even know they want yet. But he knew, so in that music world, they want something and you're giving it to them and then you monetize it. Yeah. Right?
It's the power of self-revelation. I think one of the biggest opportunities we have is from a curationist perspective, is to help audiences realize things for themselves and spur that conversation. Yeah. And when you do that, you change the dynamic. So it's really, really powerful to help people kind of see these different ways with music, whatever medium you have. So self-revelatory powers is very important.
And social media is absolutely an amplifier. Like, it's by no means a problem. Like we always have to cut through the noise, but we can't please everybody. So you need to find your own space and your own like bubble and niche.
But you mentioned one thing when we talked about the fact that you're the first industry that was disintermediated, where the business model was somehow sort of derailed. There's a bust that hits the industry every few years now, because technology is changing so fast that you have to adapt and you have to anticipate, as Jill indicated. You can't roll with the punches. You have to actually proactively go out there and find out what's the next thing. The thing is that you say that social media it can be your friend, it can be an amplifier, but the problem with all of our industries is ultimately the thing that's going to be the salvation of the industry is business models behind this. Being the person that stands out in a YouTube channel that can monetize it and then create cosmetic brands around it, etc., are probably the exception, not the rule. So how is it that you can go out there as a musician?
Well, it's quality first, and regularity, and really be keen to have an authentic emotional relationship with your audience. I think that's the very basic. That's not even the recipe. That's like, you're not in the game if you're not doing that.
Yeah, and I think what Jill was tapping on too, in terms of finding sponsors, it's really crucial to find sponsorship and brands who buy into your value system. Because if you try to force that down and you want a brand that wants an overnight, internet success, let's create a viral video. If anybody had that, they come to your office, we want a viral video. You go, you don't get viral videos. Like those things organically happen. But you have to work with brands who appreciate and understand the core value of your mission, whether it's your music or your art or your book or your
Which is this word authenticity that we talk about, right?
Yeah.
Sure, and you have to know the people, not just like the brands or the communities or the larger entities. You have to understand and know the people that want to engage with your quality content. I mean, on the book side of things, maybe it's a little bit old-timey, but we're trying to sell books to people who will enjoy reading them, and that's what it comes down to. We have We have a product to sell, it's content, but it comes in a particular format. And I put this in here just to dispel any myths about the book industry. The future is strong for books. People are reading books, people are buying books. In Canada, 80% of the book market is in print. It doesn't mean that the digital formats are stalled. I mean, people are still selling books, but people are selling print books and ebooks. Kids are reading books. Juvenile print sales are increasing. Kids are reading books in print format by choice. And 35% of people are actually buying their books in bookstores still. In Canada, that's actual data from last year. People are also finding books in bookstores. So we have to think about what the physical space is and visibility in stores and bricks and mortar, and as well online.
So if you read Mark Twain, then you'd know that the rumors of my death are highly exaggerated. You know? So
I just brought a couple examples of things that we've been doing at ECW to actually reach out to our communities. There's a couple screen grabs from Facebook here, but on the content marketing side, so we do at ECW, we're a general trade publisher. We do lots of different kinds of books that are geared towards specific niches. So we're not trying to get readers to appreciate ECW as a brand, but to learn about our authors and to know that if they like hockey books, they might come to us to find something else. Actually, do you want to go back?
Oh, sorry, I'm sorry.
If they like hockey books, they might want to come to us for that, and that we're going to provide them with more information about hockey books or whatever it is. This is an example of a book that came out last fall called Clockwork Lives. It's a novel written by a pretty well-known American science fiction writer Kevin J. Anderson and Neil Peart, who's the drummer from the band Rush. Rush has a huge fan base, so does Kevin, steampunk, music. So we have some communities that we already know that we want to reach out to. So how do we get them and how do we engage them over a sustained period of time? This was all in the lead up to the publication, this particular campaign, and we did actually 3 paid posts on Facebook over that time. I put the cost up there. It was only just over $1,000. We got a massive number of impressions, and we were giving people physical things for engaging with us online. So we would send them an exclusive sampler, and this fan base loves this kind of thing. Like, they wanted to see this sampler. They wanted to have it as part of their collection. We printed, the second one is we printed tarot cards. We made a card for every character in the book, and these sets were in huge demand. So the fact that we had a few to give away made people share on their timelines, so expanding our audience hugely to other people who are going to be interested in this by actually putting stuff in the mail and sending it out to them afterwards. And it actually doubled, I think more than doubled, our pre-orders on Amazon in this case before the publication of the book by doing this particular content marketing campaign over a few weeks.
Has it turned into, and we talked about Keitai Shosetsu and the whole idea of creating community before you actually create a publication, or Wattpad's another example. It's more formalized into a business of creating community and then publishing that, and I know the Simon Schuster, my publisher, takes on a lot of the Wattpad stuff. Is that sort of like the baby band breaking it by having a community and then getting the album out? Is it now the same with the book industry?
Well, maybe, but I think it's a little bit different as well. I think that what we're trying to do is create and then be able to sustain that community. So you want to be able to you don't want to just put something out there once, like put some posts on Facebook and hope that those people are going to keep coming back to you. You want them to get to know that you're the place to go, that if you subscribe to our newsletter, if you engage with us directly, then you'll be able to get more of the kind of things that you like. And the more is going to be maybe some contests and exciting, like a signed Neil Peart book. That's a unique thing that lots of people want. That's not what we have all of the time, but we might have other things that you'll like as well. So we're going to guarantee that we're going to be sending you interesting things, and we're going to be introducing you to other kinds of authors and other books that you might want to read that are up your alley. So if you go to the next slide, I think this is a good example of this. We've been doing for the past several years a campaign where we give away a free ebook with the purchase of every print book, and it's been, I would say, our #1 way to directly interact with our audience and learn more about what they like. People buy books in bookstores, as demonstrated, or online, not so much directly from us. So how do we learn about who those people are and what they like? people have to send us an email if they want their free ebook. And then we learn a little bit about them. We help lots of people get ebooks onto devices for the first time ever, which has been a really interesting and fun thing. And then we create content and contests specifically for those people. So for example, if they had claimed a free ebook for a novel. I have one of our newsletters up there that we just did over the holidays. We did great gifts for lit lovers. It went out to them. They got special discount code, and we knew that they were interested in these particular kinds of books. So they're not just seeing, oh, well, we're a publisher and we have all this stuff. We're actually drilling it down to curate content directly for our readers. And we have, there's several goals with this. It's a bonus to a sale, so it gives us more visibility in bookstores because booksellers in bricks and mortar stores think, great, this is a bonus for our customers for buying this book. That's a reason to pay a little bit of a premium for a print book. It's helping us with bring readers back for more. We started a loyalty program with it, so people may come, as if they claim a few books, they get a free book. Great, they actively go back to our website and look. And we invite them to comment and engage their own communities online with our books, with every interaction that we have with them. So we're encouraging more and more, and for those people to go out and be the advocates for a particular title or a program that we have or a genre that we have. But you wouldn't see, we publish 50 books a year. There's 6 books in this newsletter that will maybe lead people back to our website where they can find more about exactly what it is that they like.
So if you get it right, things aren't so bleak for the industry. When you walk by as Bloor and you see Book City out of business, and you actually look at what the owner put in the window, and it says, thanks to the tip I'll get in Amazon, and this is sort of the leitmotif that you associate with the book industry. Actually, things aren't so bleak because you're going back to the small book owner who has a relationship. Maybe for the Barnes & Nobles and the Heather Reismans of the world, maybe it's going to be tough.
Yeah, there's no denying. It's a small margin business, and it's really brutal out there. It's hard for booksellers, it's hard for publishers, it's hard for Amazon, honestly. They are taking a loss on a lot of stuff that they're selling to gain market share. But I don't think it can be simplified so much as that people are just going into bookstores and buying stuff online. Amazon would and has in fact said that people do a lot of their browsing on Amazon and go somewhere else to buy a book as well. So sometimes, of course, sometimes it goes both ways. But I think the upshot is that people are going out there to find something that they want to read, and they're going to pick up what they see somewhere. So if they see it, not even necessarily in a bookstore, if they see it on a rack at Walmart or Costco or something where a huge amount of book sales take place, it's because they walked by and decided to pick it up. So where does that walk by take place? Does it take place because your friend recommended it to you on Twitter, or does it take place because you actually walked into your local independent bookstore and it was on the table?
Part to purchase is a very complex thing now. It probably always was complex, but now we can actually see it. But definitely, where you start and where you end, whether you're showrooming in the mall and buying in the cloud, or as you say, we see it in the cloud, but because of necessity, I need the physicality of the bookstore. It's a much more complex ecosystem. Right?
Yeah, and path to purchase is really interesting, especially for books where it's really consolidated in a very short amount of time.
Right.
So you have a really, really small window to capture somebody's attention and actually make them pick it up. It's not like buying a car or something. People are thinking about this for a long time. It's like that.
And you just have to make sure that you don't interrupt that intent to buy by too many clicks or too many steps.
Yeah,
so we talked about the domestic geek and the huge success that you've had in that arena. Tell us a little bit about how you build a success. And I know we touched on this in the keynote. Tell us about your story.
Well, I think 5 years ago, I would have described myself as a television producer, and our company, RTR Media, was originally created by myself, Debbie Travis, who was a big lifestyle brand, and her husband, Hans Rosenstein, and then I bought them out. It also stood for Retired Tuscany Rich, and so I bought them out, and they bought a villa in Tuscany. And Debbie's doing a TV show on it. But I learned a lot from Debbie Travis. She was a Brit, and she, first of all, way back when, taught me to think global. Don't think about Canada, think about the world market, which was an invaluable lesson. The other thing was she was fierce about quality content, and if it meant going over budget and fighting with your line producer, sometimes you do that. But it was always about manageable risk, and Hans taught me that part of it. But the other thing
I'm going to let you continue your thread, but when you say, you know, think global, really it's only recently that you had the tools to allow you to be global.
Well,
I mean,
before you had to give up 30% of your profit and work with the distributor, right? Now we've bypassed that. So I think what we did was, and I am a storyteller and I really believe in research and playing, and I'm a lifelong learner. So R&D is crucial to RTR Media. And television, I think we could do a better job in that area. And I could see that my 3 adult children, all raised in a home with a father who worked for a network and a mother who worked as a producer, none of them owned television sets. And I went, okay, like we paid for their education with TV, and none of them, all 3 of them, work in different aspects of the media, own a TV. Well, if that's not a wake-up call, you know, what is? So then we started to do more research and see the trends, and going places like Primetime with the CMPA and listening to ComScore. And you know, you can't ignore these facts. You can't ignore the research. And that propels you to do R&D. So we decided to put 1/3 of our R&D budget into the digital sandbox. And I went out and got a bunch of young people, and we played. And they created a channel called Coral on YouTube. And sometimes if anybody wants to buy me a drink, I'll tell you some of the really bad mistakes I made on that. But Google was phenomenally helpful. And I mean, I went to LA and the OMDC Export Fund paid for me to go, or at least half. But anyways, I went to LA and I knocked on Google's door. And I went, hi, I'm a Canadian and I don't know what I'm doing, but I make good content. Could you help me? And they did. And then they sent me to New York. And then they opened an office in Toronto because they heard a lot about Canada.
So tell me one thing that they told you that was seminal.
Routine. If you're going to start your channel, be prepared to be committed to it for at least 3 years.
And that's a leitmotif. I've heard this right across the panel. It's not about reach. It's about consistency and frequency on that reach. Because you can pay for audience, but you won't keep them if you can't consistently message to them.
The old television model is 6 weeks before launch, you spew out a whole bunch of promotion and publicity and hope the Globe and Mail and John Doyle are nice to you, right? But now, no, you start the day you have the idea, and you do the Facebook page and the Instagram are your weapons of choice, and convincing the networks this is hard, and sometimes we just wait until they scream at us, but we started it. So anyways, we started this channel. We had 10 young women, and the channel was advice you need from women who live it. And it was all the advice that your mother never taught you because she was too busy working, about life skills, cooking, money, fashion, all of that. The #1 person from that was an associate producer in our office named Sarah Lynn Cochon. And she said, I have an idea for household tips called The Domestic Geek. She went on Coral for 2 years. We fine-tuned that concept, and it went from household tips to 1 recipe 3 ways. So there was our funnel, and as Andrew was saying, you kept on going down that road to find the niche, the niche, the niche, the niche. We launched this channel. We hoped in April, we hoped that by September we'd have 10,000 followers. We had 100,000. And we're like, wow, what's going on? Like something connected. So we had incubated, an MCN from Los Angeles contacted us, Kin Community. They taught us a lot. We learned. You have to be open to learning every day, right? Every day you have to be open. And at that point, we started the Domestic Geek. Now we just hit 600,000. We have like huge views. Smoothies, if you search smoothies on Google. How about this for a niche market? Smoothies, who knew? We are the #1 result that comes out. That I'm very proud of.
Really
I'm very proud of that. And there's 4 million views, and you talk about money, every month it's cha-ching, ka-ching into the bank account.
Nice.
We did that years
let's
ago.
talk about the pizza pie. So that's interesting.
And when I look at this, because where do we get our money from?
Yeah.
We get our business model is AdSense, and after a certain number of subscribers, AdSense does actually start to pay the bills. On Coral, we could still buy a few cups of coffee for the the office. But the social media, we are seeing, especially in the lifestyle area, and ComScore at prime time said this 4 years ago, is the brands for food have really moved over to their spends to digital, really big. Not so much in home, but food has. So, you see here where the brand spends are, 43%, social media 42%, search 12%, TV 2%. Well, my main business is television, and now I have to have a sponsor attached to a show. You have to have a Canadian Screen Award, great numbers, a sponsor attached, and then you hope and pray they'll renew you. Whereas here, we have a little thing on our YouTube channel that says, contact us if interested. Well, Starbucks contacted us, and Silk almond milk.
So it's a build community and they will come.
Yeah, we haven't done anything. And they've come with great brand campaigns. So now, and once again, we did this on our own for 3 years. And I once, with the OMDC, with Karen, and I said, I'll bring you something when it's the right thing. And they did the Collaboration and Innovation Fund, and we applied. And one of the best things about that fund was they made us go through training, and it was business training. It wasn't media company training, it was business training. And that was so crucial. So we came with the series idea, and after we went through that course, we decided, no, we needed to create a new business. So we created a new business, which we've just launched, called Inspired Entertainment. It's owned half by me and half by Sarah Lynn Cochon. And we're using that money to do longer form content, which we tested last year, and it's gone off the roof.
That's amazing. So, as we want to wrap up for some questions, but as we look forward, and you're looking at HAL 9000 and its technology, and you're deer in the headlights, to make technology your friend in all of your industries as you move forward. It seems to me that you have to ask the right questions, you have to go and ask Google, you have to get the right tips, but it seems to me what I'm hearing increasingly is, don't think about one channel, the omni-channel idea. You have to think of the whole story across all your touch points, and you have to build community, which is all about authenticity, and it's not just about buying reach, but it's creating consistent messaging and frequency in that channel so that you can grow it, right? And so from a music perspective, I know that you've also expanded your channels, right? You used to be, hey, I'll create an album and I'll sell it. And now it's about, obviously, the physical tour is so important. The merch has always been important, but now it's crucially important. And then building community around my video channels and other things, just like other sectors have leveraged it, right?
The key element in music is who owns the IP, and unfortunately, there's I think a real problem in fostering new talent. And I think the way, as an artist manager, the way is for the artist to own their IP and bring the team that is closest to the talent to really empower the artist and make sure that they're able to do what they're inspired to do. Just like I think Andrew said earlier, like if he wants to do a TV show, you need to keep artists do their thing, because they'll always have like a better a sense of urgency and a connection with the audiences with them.
Well, I think the other thing here is keeping the artist first. One of the things that can get lost in all of this discussion about, the business model and the sponsors and everything, we've found great success in putting the artist first and making sure that artists feel that there's a home and that there's a place for them, and that we connect and really help grow their influence. So that's something that I think needs to be said to this audience, that it's an important element.
Yeah, it's paramount, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
That's where it starts.
And so the last little question I'd like to ask before I throw it out to the audience is, we have a traditional sort of idea, an analog idea of long format content, right? You have a beginning, a middle, and end. How do you adapt content to a micro-content economy. And what I mean by that is, obviously, people are coming in for Chichilian, sound bites from Twitter, and they're going to a YouTube channel that is maybe 3 minutes long, 5 minutes long at max. Yeah. There's you have an economy of content consumption which is based on small parceling of the information. How do you adapt all your content channels, whether it be books or whether it be the TV show, to accommodate that across all your new channels, which are consumed differently?
Well, first, I think you look to the strength of the platform and you choose your home base. So if I use the Domestic Geek as a channel, and different shows and personalities and talents might have a different structure, but I'll use that one as an example. So YouTube is the home base. Mm-hmm. That's the home base. And that is where you will see Sarah Lynn. You will learn how to cook one recipe 3 ways.
So you have to pick one pillar. You have to pick your home. So you've chosen YouTube as the home base, your home channel.
But then we very quickly realized that Instagram, mm-hmm. A lot of people would be on Instagram. Plus, there was another whole new audience on Instagram. And it was a little bit younger than the YouTube audience, but we have great photography. We've always had great photography. So then you start the Instagram and you're driving back and forth. Always.
And it's cross-pollination.
Yeah, and there is probably in the middle, there's a group of the community that crosses, but there's also separate and distinct. Facebook is huge. And I mean, one of the stats is YouTube has like 40-something of the spend, but Facebook this year, that's where you really got to work on video. So now we have the Facebook community, and that is hands only. It's a different visual experience that they want. So then you have Facebook. Then the ebooks come in, and then when I talk to these guys more, it's going to be the book. Right. And so you will platform it out. But look at the strength of the platform. I used to say when we developed a TV show, choose your audience, right. Then choose your broadcaster. Now I would say choose your audience, choose your platform. And
choose that home base. Like I presume your publication is your anchor, the physical the publication, your YouTube. Where would be your home base platform in this omni-channel world?
Well, the book. I think we have to be careful. Like, let's not be too reductive about what capacity people have. People spend hours watching movies. They spend hours watching TV series. They sit down and they read books. Maybe it's at a glance that they learn about it, but I don't think that we need to parcel our material out in teeny tiny bits to people. We all have the capacity to consume all kinds of entertainment media, and we do it all the time. So let's remember that. And it's the pieces around it that we can help build awareness, but it's not.
A deeper dive. I think one of the things that's interesting with what you said is you still have to cause the spark for the deeper dive. And I think that's a change in editorial viewpoint, editorial voice, is creating that curiosity, that hunger to do that deeper dive for the long form.
Yeah, it's almost the pickup line at the bar that gets you into a relationship that gets you married. Yeah. So there you go.
Sure, and I don't think that's a change. That's like an age-old thing, but the ways that the catalyst for that has changed. There's lots of different things that we can do now to get to that point.
So we've tipped into the Q&A session, so I wanted to open it up for you guys to plow in with questions to the panel. Yes, the lady there. Yeah, you can start shouting and a mic's coming. Slowly. Very slowly. This lady right here. Thank you.
Hi, Kit.
Oh, hi, how are you?
I just want to ask you about multi-channel networks, which is essentially MCN, which you mentioned, and a lot of people don't exactly know what that means, but essentially there are companies that go around signing up YouTube channels, especially signing up YouTube channels by creators who don't know anything about the business.
Yes.
So I'm wondering if you actually recommend them, because at this very same event last year, the guy from Amazing Orange, he was saying how his MCN hadn't paid him for several months. So on one hand, it sounds like something good for people who need help with the business end, but I'm wondering if you actually recommend them.
And it's funny now, MCNs are beginning to change their name to MPNs because MCN was multi-channel network, meaning number of YouTube channels. So you couldn't sell one channel. They didn't have a large enough subscriber base, so they would start to bundle them. So now they're saying they're multi-platform networks because they want to sell all the platforms. I think it's very, if I use the television comparison, because that's the world that I know, Google is like a Shaw. Like they're the big carrier, the big technological machine, a Google or a Shaw or a Rogers. The MCNs are like the broadcasters. You know, so they decide who they're going to push and when they're going to push and where the ad dollars are going to be spent and everything else. So I think you choose your broadcaster very wisely based on your audience, and you choose your MCN if you choose an MCN. So some of the projects we're working on have MCNs attached, and we make very strategic decisions, and we'll be announcing one in 2 weeks. Because that MCN has to offer huge value to your growth. If they're just selling your content, that's not the right MCN for you to be with. They should be helping you with representation. They should be helping you with understanding brands, absolutely doing that sales job. That's, you know, that's a lot of work. And they should also be helping you with search engine optimization, working with your community manager, with your talent, getting you out there marketing. And if they aren't doing those things, you know, then you've got to look at it. The other thing I would recommend to any young YouTuber, because they're brilliant and they are the whole next generation of entrepreneurs in this country, and I have such respect for them, is hire a good lawyer. When I started my business 12 years ago, I went to Al McGee, one of the best storytellers in the country, and I said, Al, you know, give me some advice. And he said, hire the best damn lawyer you can find and the best damn accountant you can find and do what they say.
But it seems to be like what's old is new again. I mean, you say,
yeah.
you know, essentially we just
There's
say
only
we transport.
stories.
Yeah, we're transporting, you know, Shaw, now it's YouTube, and you're saying, you know, instead of a broadcaster, you now have an aggregator.
I know,
here.
and we've talked about that window of opportunity for owning content.
Yeah.
So there was a big wave in 2007 with YouTube, and then there was another big opportunity, and I think in the music world as well. We kind of get these breakout moments like the 60s, and then all of a sudden the forces of the world descend, and it becomes harder and harder, which is why I asked Andrew the question about owning your content. And I have to say, I love CAVCO and CRTC, because in this country, if you're going to get taxpayer support, you have to own and control your own content. But in the United States, that's increasingly more difficult to hang on long enough. Hang on, like don't give up and own your own content. And that's where sometimes we do need a little help with the tax credits to build the infrastructures for our companies and do the R&D to make that break where we can be the best in the world. And I would argue we are.
Excellent. Any other questions from the audience? No? So
there's one there.
There is. Oh, good. Yes.
Sorry, what's her name, the lady?
Yes, sir. Erin.
Hi, the lady in black. Sort of sounds so ominous. You said that you sent out samplers of your publications. Can you explain a little bit more about that? It seems like there's a cost associated with that. You've got printing and then postage, especially shipping from Canada. How did you deal with that? Like, how did you recoup that?
How did we recoup it? Well, by selling lots of books, ultimately. We had a marketing budget, and we knew one of the authors, Kevin, the sci-fi author, attends a ton of conventions and different kinds of fan cons, comic cons, that kind of thing. And the primary purpose for the samplers, for printing a whole whack of them, was for him to take and offer to his fans at those places, and rather than just giving them away, because you know people are just inundated with paper at this kind of thing, and they'll pick up anything. He ended up just charging $1 for them, so people were giving something to assign some value to those samplers. So that was sort of one side of things. So we printed a ton for that, and then we had lots in our office to send out. So yeah, there's value, but that's our marketing dollars. That's what we decided to do. So we decided to do that rather than maybe spending money on other high-profile ads or things like that we could have done. We decided to make our marketing dollars go towards building and engaging that community instead. It wasn't that expensive, all to say. We didn't mail thousands of them.
The gentleman in the front here. Yeah, you can. There you go.
Thanks. Jerry Brown from 2Life. Kit, gave a bit of detail about how she uses social media and the favorite channels. Maybe the other three could just give a bit of detailed info on maybe what used to work, you know, what your favorite is today, and what you think might be happening in the next 6 months, 12 months, in terms of the, you know, the most appropriate social media channel. Just pick one, if you can.
Well, I'll start by saying that the question is not about which platform, it's about playing to your strength of the project that you're selling. So if your project is like visual driven, you're gonna go to Instagram. If your project is like a bit more mainstream and just communication, you're gonna pick Facebook. If you've got a shock and awe kind of repeatedly things like that, you're gonna go to Twitter. You know, it's really more about yeah, just you need to find the one that fits your project, and I think that's been said before. Yeah.
Yeah, where your audience is, where you can find your audience, and how much it costs you on different platforms to reach them if they seem to be on more. The Clockwork Lives campaign, we also spent about $450 on Twitter for 2 million engagements. So it's not a lot of money to get a lot of people's eyes on something if it's the platform where you know that those people are already engaged and spending their time.
Yeah, I would say we have the same approach. We use multi-platforms. I mean, to devote to one would hurt us in the sense because we are visual, so we have Instagram, but people are also looking for soundbite news, so we're throwing stuff out on Twitter all the time. We've got a great Facebook following, which is surprising to us how it's grown. We've grown about 150%. In about 12 months. So it's been phenomenal for us, and it's momentum. A lot of it's finding which channel has the most momentum for you and then really starting to hammer it. Yeah. So that's one thing that we watch for.
I mean, if I can interject, I mean, it seems really that at the end of the day, if you're a good marketer, if you understand your audience, whether it be circa 10 years back or now, you'd be good at using the tools that are that you can leverage at that point in time. So whether it be now Twitter and Facebook and Instagram or Snapchat or Pinterest, those are the tools. We had tools 10 years ago, they were different, but ultimately if you're a good marketer, you understand your audience, you can build loyalty and authenticity to grow. Would that be an accurate statement?
Well, I think the other issue too is being able to convert those people, and I don't think we've spent enough time. If you've got 50,000 people, however many you've got on a channel, what are you doing to actually get them to sign up for something that you can then start to develop a relationship with them? So that's the one thing I think we've missed is the conversion factor. Right.
I mean, we talked about with Andrew the difference between having impressions and subscribers. Because subscribers are re-engagement, it's loyalty. And you can convert them. You can drive conversion into a commerce opportunity. You can drive conversion into, whatever does ka-ching for you. Yes. Oh, hey, Jake.
Jake Gold from the Management Trust. I'm a talent manager like Guillaume. Can any of you give me an example of using modern tools where you've shown how you can build your brand loyalty to an extent where you've engaged your customers and giving them something maybe that they couldn't get anywhere else, where you, as P.T. Barnum said, over-serviced your customer? Can somebody give me an example of what you've done to kind of engage that loyalty?
I think one of the things that we've done, Jake, is we've tried to build exclusivity. So we'll have, an author post something, and then we'll engage with a group of very, very devoted friends of our organization. We'll have an exclusive event with that person, and they feel very special. They get to ask their question of this person. They get time with them, and it's something that we're doing much more methodically and deliberately.
So just in response to that. How did they find out about it? And secondly, what made it exclusive? Was it they had to be part of a mailing list to be exclusive? Did they have to, respond to a tweet or an Instagram post? Like, what created that exclusivity?
The exclusivity was created because they have been loyal. They've been donors. In our situation, we're a charitable organization. So we want to make sure that we build loyalty amongst our subscribers, our donors. And we often, they will reach out to us, and we do a newsletter to our donor community. These are special things that are happening just for you, only for you. And if you want to take part, and then what happens
not to kind of rain on your parade, but that's a paid thing. That's like, if you pay, we'll give you exclusivity. I'm more talking about using social media channels and how someone would engage their audience and how you've done that kind of engagement. I mean, I know I've done it in the past with certain acts where, and I'm sure, Guillaume, you've done it where, retweet this, we'll send you a download for free that only you get if you do that, like a call to action or something like that.
Yeah. We're in a situation, and I won't be able to answer your question fully yet, but Andrew, his book about, small towns, we have a pilot that's coming out on Sunday and in the United States, and it's set in a small town. And we set up a Facebook page, and I said, everybody, we had 4 administrators. I said, everybody invite all their friends, and we'll hope we'll get 100 likes, because then we could get insights, right? By the end of the day, we had 2,000. I went, what is going on? That small town just went wild. So for the past 2 weeks, now we have 6,000 likes on that page, which isn't a lot, but for a Facebook page that's 3 weeks old, I realized that we now have that exclusive community, which are people who invested in the show because of where they live and what the show is about. And I don't know all of it yet, but I'm like, oh, there's something there. There's something there, because now we are going to use all of those 6,000 people are going to be our super fans and our amplifiers. And I see Stephen here with Degrassi, and Degrassi is like, did this, right? And successfully for years. But I'm thinking these are the people who will be our brand ambassadors for the show. But we will have to reward them, and we will have to continue to nurture them.
But you were talking about last night, it's not only rewarding them by giving them a signed T-shirt, but also just spending time with them and treating them.
A lot of them have written to me, because one of the things we're doing is we're saying who is responding to the thing, whether it's the actual personality or whether it's me, the executive producer, which I normally don't do. Like, normally a community manager kind of fakes that they're the person, which isn't a great thing and isn't authentic. Well, some of these super fans now want to be my personal Facebook friend, which you go, oh, do I accept that? Like, Facebook is for my friends. Right. And now what I'm going to do, but I've taken about 10 of them, so they now have a little insight into who I am and what my life is, and they are like just the best unpaid publicity team I've ever had in my life.
Well, you give them a backstage pass.
Yeah, I gave them a Facebook pass. Yeah, it's true.
Okay, we're coming to the witching hour. Is there any last question? Yes, ma'am.
This right here.
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't realize that I thought you were waving at me like
Thank you.
time.
Hi, my name is Zell Artin. I'm a school teacher turned producer of an educational television show program. I'm from Northern Ontario, and in developing that concept, there's a lot of things happening up in the north, and a lot of American producers are coming up to leverage the amazing tax credits and incentives. However, there's nothing there in terms of production houses, there's nothing there in basically a skeletal crews. Is the Ontario Media Development Corporation, as well as the Northern Ontario Heritage Fund, working on developing almost like a mentorship or something to develop the burgeoning environment in the north?
Probably not the best person to answer this, but I'll give you a short answer and tell you probably who to go talk to, because there absolutely are with the Northern Ontario Development Fund, and there is an excellent producer up there who I can give you the name of, and who's also setting up mentorship. So if you talk to me afterwards, I could probably.
One other thing too to mention is Northern Ontario has amazing fiber optics capability and so on and so forth. So talking about rendering farms, the ability to access the fiber, storage systems, perhaps the Ontario Media Development Corporation might think about supplying some sort of infrastructure for the years to come, whether it's music or entertainment. We have that all stored up in Northern Ontario. No, I don't work for the city.
It's a great place to shoot. Yes. I know. We have a project in development with CBC right now that's set in the north. So I've been talking to a lot of the creators and craft people up there, and yeah, you're right. It's an amazing place.
So no matter where you are in Canada, in Northern Ontario. We have insights, we have channels, multi-channels, and we're going to sew them all together with authenticity and reach and frequency, and we're going to drive some commerce. And so thank you so much. I really appreciate everybody's participation. You're a great panel, and thank you.